was an afterthought, an event add-on that had barely been organized in any recognizable way, other than the course had been measured, sort of, and determined to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 23 to 25 miles, which was close enough. As with most road races of the day, the small cluster of young men who gathered on the starting line in Stamford, Connecticut, knew they ran at their own risk. Risk that came mostly from the myriad, underhanded ways gamblers had of ensuring a payout when their money was on the line. By race's end, one man would reign triumphant, though not without controversy, and America would feel the first wave of a condition that some of us still can't shake to this day: marathon fever. Today is Friday, September 19th, 2025, and on this day in 1896, the very first marathon in North America was put on by New York's Knickerbocker Athletic Club. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and you are listening to Today in Running History. It is Fueled Friday, which means that today's episode is sponsored by Fuel Goods, my one-stop shop for all of my running nutrition needs. That includes the breakfast bars I eat in the car on the way to the trailhead, the gels, chews, and electrolytes I consume during my run, and the protein shakes I make when I get back home. And while the Fuel Goods marketplace is great, my favorite thing is actually their Runner Box subscription. Every 2 months, I get a box with more than $50 worth of running snacks, hydration, and accessories, and it's a combination of tried and true brands that I love, plus some new ones that I may have otherwise never heard about. And here's where it gets even better. First, when you use my code Hillary10 at checkout, you will get $10 off your first box. Second, you will automatically get another $10 in the form of fuel bucks as soon as you sign up, and these can be spent on anything at the marketplace. And finally, as a subscriber, you automatically get a discount on everything in the marketplace. So check out Fuel Goods at the link in the episode description and make sure you enter my code Hillary10 at checkout. Happy Fueled Friday! Now let's head back to New England at the end of the 19th century. In April of 1896, the world's attention was captured by the first installment of the modern Olympiad. Held in Athens and based on ancient Greek athletic competition, the game's capstone was the men's marathon. So it's no surprise that the Knickerbockers would choose to include a race of that distance at their annual carnival and track meet later that year. Hilly and muddy and more than a little treacherous, the course ended near Van Cortlandt Park in the Upper Bronx. Though figures vary wildly, most records say that 15 men started the race, and many list the number of finishers at 19, which actually makes a lot of sense given the amount of cheating that went on back then. If you think that Rosie Ruiz was some sort of cheating pioneer when she pulled her Boston stunt in the 80s, you are missing out on the fascinating and nefarious history of road racing's early days. I will tell you that the winner of the Knickerbocker AC Marathon in 1896 would be dead before his 31st birthday. And I will tell you that the man who led the race until mile 13 was struck down by a poisonous wafer. But those two events are not connected. The Kentucky Derby had debuted in 1875, immediately becoming sports bettors' most beloved event. But the first Saturday of May comes around only once per year, so gamblers turned to a broad range of competitions to satisfy that itch the other 364 days of the year. Baseball and boxing were huge draws, as was that beloved spectator sport that we've talked about in earlier episodes, competitive pedestrianism, aka walking while people watch. So if you're someone who is going to bet on a competition in which people try to outwalk each other, you are absolutely going to bet on one where they hit speeds above 3 miles an hour. And if you are a 19th century sports bettor, more likely than not, you are going to try to fix those races. If you can't get the favorite to throw the race, your next option is sabotage, which brings us back to the poisoned wafer. From the start, the frontrunner of the Knickerbocker Marathon was D.C. Hall, who led the field until almost halfway. It was later speculated that someone who had bet against Hall needed to make sure that he didn't win. But Hall ran for a club in Boston, and the rivalry between the cities of Boston and New York was well established by this point. So, another idea that was tossed around was that no self respecting New Yorker was going to let a Boston man win a New York race. All we know for certain is that Hall was in front until around mile 12 when he accepted a wafer from his bicycle escort and collapsed soon after. He was removed from the course, but later recovered. Hall's DNF opened the door for the rest of the field, which included U.S. 10-miler champion Hamilton Gray of New York, as well as Harvard med student and standout miler Richard Grant. But the competitor who pulled ahead was not likely to have been at the top of anyone's betting slip that day. John J. McDermott was the eldest son of Irish immigrants, a mother who died when John was 11 and a father who tended bar in their Hell's Kitchen neighborhood of New York City. Nicknamed Little Mac, 22-year-old McDermott still resembled the frail and sickly child he had been for most of his life. His 5'6", 125-pound frame was all but swallowed up by the enormous shorts he wore. I'm going to recommend that you pause this video for a sec so you can type the words former NBA Milwaukee Buck TJ Ford huge shorts into Google, and you will get an idea of what John McDermott looked like when he was kitted out and ready to race. He ran for the Pastime Athletic Club, which incidentally was 4 years old in 1896, but is still in operation today. McDermott led for the rest of the race with Gray close on his heels. Each man alternated running and walking, which is understandable given what passed for running shorts at the time. Gray got within 200 yards, but just couldn't catch Little Mac. He was greeted by cheers as he entered the Columbia Oval, no longer in existence, but then an athletics facility belonging to Columbia University. McDermott's time of 3:25.55 was far short of the inaugural Olympic record of 2:58.50 that was set 5 months prior, but the Knickerbocker race conditions had been much poorer than those in Athens. Plus, as far as we know, no one in Athens was distracted by the possibility of being poisoned during that race. Little Mac could have been a one-hit wonder, popping up to win North America's first ever marathon, then fading into obscurity until the eventual invention of Wikipedia. Instead, he became a two-hit wonder by winning the first running of the Boston Marathon the next year in a battle with his old nemesis Hamilton Gray, then fading into obscurity. His winning time in Boston of 2:55.10 was 3 minutes and 40 seconds faster than the record established at the Olympics, but there was no set standard marathon distance yet and no organization to ratify records anyway. McDermott returned to Boston as the favorite in 1898, but lost to another recent subject of today in running history, the incomparable Ronald McDonald of Nova Scotia. McDermott's name pops up only a handful of times on race entries through 1901. Then, in a 1905 Boston Marathon preview story, the Louisville Courier-Journal mentioned that he had died. Nothing was ever written to contradict this. Some historians believe that by the time John J. McDermott took his first step in North America's first ever marathon, he was already living on borrowed time. Exactly when he died, or where he was buried, or what he did up until his death, other than run 3 major marathons, will most likely remain a mystery forever. But his cause of death was almost certainly either tuberculosis or an inherited pulmonary disease. TB claimed the life of McDermott's sister in 1905, sometime after his presumed death. The lives of ordinary people just weren't documented 125 years ago like they are today. It was the Knickerbocker Marathon Medal, passed down over generations, that led a group of sisters to discover that their great-granduncle was the winner of America's first marathon. As for the Knickerbocker Marathon, it was a one-and-done event. The club turned its focus to the new sport of football before ultimately disbanding in 1902. If you are hoping to capture a bit of the Knickerbocker magic for yourself, the closest you will get is the inaugural Knickerbocker Mile in Rockland State Park, to be held on October 11th of this year. Happy running, and don't accept a mid-race wafer from anyone you don't know. That's all I have for today's show. Thank you so much for continuing to tune in. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, and most importantly, just keep listening. Don't forget that it is Fueled Friday, and you can save $10 on your first runner box from Fuel Goods by using my code Hillary10 at the link in the episode description. And then join me tomorrow as we learn about the only woman in history to win 4 Olympic gold medals at a single Olympics. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and this has been Today in Running History, aka Walking While Peach.